Lieutenant Colonel Jim Carafano from the Heritage Foundation. Benny Thompson, Democrat Socialist from Mississippi, is the committee chairman. What is going to come of the Jan 6th Commission? Well, a couple of things. He told Clinton Foundation donor zero, that would be George Stephanopoulos for those of you scoring your nicknames at home. A couple of things. One, legislation. Two, a criminal referral. Particularly the latter matter is problematic, and maybe it's time for House Republican leadership to start paying a little bit more attention to this. And yes, it's illegitimate. Yes, McCarthy didn't get the Republicans he wanted on the commission, so he's been dismissive of it, and it deserves to be largely dismissed. But no, you can't just ignore it and pretend that it doesn't exist. It has to be dealt with head on, particularly when the Star Chamber that has been assembled is preparing to exceed its constitutional authority. First, Benny Thompson on never again and what form that might take.
Well, the first legislation would be the coordination of resources to protect the Capitol. There were significant inconsistencies in coordination. The National Guard from the District of Columbia was slow to respond, not on its own, but they had to go to the Department of Defense. We have actually fixed that right now, where the mayor of the District of Columbia can access the Guard right now. In addition to that, our intelligence gathering components. As you know, it was clear that we were not apprised that something would happen. But for the most part, it was the worst kept secret in America that people were coming to Washington, and the potential for coordination and what we saw was there. So we want to make sure that never happens again. In addition to that, we want to make sure that the line of communication between the Capitol Police and the structure.
Yeah, so a couple things. One is, the National Guard. It's interesting you bring that up, Chairman Thompson. Again, it can't be said enough because it won't be said from the D.C. press corps in providing any pushback to Benny Thompson. They're there to just, again, provide platform. The evidence is that President Trump offered 10,000 National Guardmen for that day, and that offer was rebuffed. So it seems like it's judgment calls, not structural problems. And in terms of legislation coming out of 1-6, here we go again. Do we learn anything from the excesses of the Patriot Act coming out of 9/11? And I'm not comparing 1-6 to 9/11 as the left does, but I am comparing the opportunity to turn, but by statists, particularly those who are supportive of the surveillance state, to take a terrible event that occurred and use that to expand federal power at the expense of the individual citizen. So what form never again might take legislatively is something to be watched closely throughout the process. Secondly, criminal referral. Benny Thompson keeps talking about this, keeps suggesting that they're open to the idea that if they come upon something they determine as criminal, which, by the way, is the entire purpose of this commission, that, he'll be duty-bound to make some sort of recommendation to the Department of Justice. Well, actually, no, the Congress and these congressional committees don't have the authority to conduct a criminal investigation. Do not. And yet that seems to be what is afoot.
We all take an oath of office, and part of that is in the pursuit of doing our day-to-day activities. If we find something that is irregular or illegal, we're obligated to report it. So I would say, for the sake of our committee, if in the course of our review we find something that we think warrant review or recommendation to the Department of Defense, Department of Judiciary, justice, to be honest with you,
There you go.
we'll do it. We are not looking for it, but if
Yeah.
we find it,
They're looking
we'll
for it.
absolutely make the referral.
They're looking for something. They're looking for something the FBI hasn't found, have they? He keeps talking in this interview and others about coordination, something the FBI has rejected as a description of what occurred on that day. Coordination. And you've got north of 700 people that have been identified and prosecuted for criminal trespass and vandalism and other charges related to the desecration of the Capitol on that day. But the FBI and all the resources at their disposal as an actual law enforcement agency, they haven't come up with anything. But Benny Thompson and his Star Chamber is going to. Yeah, this is, to me, the sort of pushback, the sort of public questioning that needs to be offered by Kevin McCarthy and House and Senate Republicans if you don't want the Democrat Socialists to further gaslight the American public about what happened on that day and subsequently in advance of the midterms. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by incumbent Republican Congressman Mary Miller from Southern Illinois, who is running for re-election. And with Illinois losing a congressional district, she is one of those Congress people who have been essentially drawn into a district with another Republican, or other Republicans, plural, and she's made a decision about her re-election, which we'll talk about as well. Representative Miller, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Well, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Before we get to your electoral prospects, what about this 1-6 commission? You've got Adam Kinzinger from Illinois, of course, who's going to continue his star turn as the Democrat Socialist favorite Republican next to Liz Cheney when he appears on the Colbert Show this week. And you're hearing what Benny Thompson, the chairman of the commission, is saying. How do you react to that? What's your position on where House Republicans should be on this?
Well, the Democrats, this is a never-ending witch hunt against President Trump because they have no agenda for the American people. They've destroyed our economy. We have this crisis at the border, energy crisis, and this is a continuing 24/7 attack on President Trump and his supporters. My opponent voted for the January 6th commission, and he's close personal friends with Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney. I called for them to be removed from the Republican conference, and American people are just weary about this. We're seeing crisis upon crisis, and they're continuing this witch hunt.
Your opponent that you're referring to is incumbent Republican Congressman Rodney Davis. So give us a little bit more in terms of the distinction between the two of you as essentially in that district. The primary will be the general election, particularly in this year.
Yeah, well, he's a career politician. He's a liberal Republican, and this is a very conservative district, the Illinois 15, strong pro-life, pro-Second Amendment district, and the constituents don't want a liberal Republican representing them in Congress. I've lived here for over 40 years on a farm. My husband and I raise corn, soybeans, cattle, and kids. We have 7 children who we've raised on the farm. I'm fighting Joe Biden's and Nancy Pelosi's agenda in ways that he's on the opposite side of a lot of the issues.
And by the way, I have to add, because I know your family a little bit, and interest of full disclosure, I supported your husband Chris when he ran for state representative. But your daughters are fantastic musicians too, by the way. So congratulations on that. I really enjoy their performances that I've seen online. So let's talk about this a little bit more. The topography of Southern Illinois is such that you could have run and again, you don't need to live in a congressional district, just the state in which the district is located. So you could have chosen to run against Mike Bost. You could have chosen to run against Rodney Davis. You chose Rodney Davis. Why?
Because there's more of a contrast between me and him. this is a conservative district, and the people here want a conservative, not just a Republican. And now they have a choice between a Republican or a conservative.
Okay. I wanted to get your reaction to something else. This, this and this is big tech, which is another issue that there's been a lot of time spent in congressional hearings whistling the Zuckerbergs and the Dorseys and the Sundar Pichais before House and Senate committees, but the abuses persist, arguably. The latest being books about Ronald Reagan, Amy Coney Barrett, and Thomas Sowell. Ads for those books were blocked by Facebook. The response from Facebook is it shouldn't have happened. It was an error, and the ad accounts have been restored. By the way, that response comes from a communications person for Meta, Facebook, named Andy Stone, who used to be with Barbara Boxer's office and the DCCC, of course. So we have, the left at the upper reaches of these big tech companies, not just the face people, the principals that everybody knows. And so what should be done? By the way, you've had Rand Paul just announce that he is pulling himself off YouTube and he's going to be posting his videos on Rumble instead. Where are you and where is the caucus on big tech in advance of 2022 and 2024? Because we were having the same conversation in advance of 2020, the work of Dr. Robert Epstein and others suggesting how much big tech attempts to manipulate information, to manipulate votes, to impact the outcomes of elections.
Yes, this is one of the issues that is causing us to really live in dangerous times. And I know one of the things I was hoping for when President Trump was reelected in 2020 and going forward is that he was going to deal with the Section 230 and the big tech censorship. This is just continuing totalitarianism, and they deplatformed President Trump. And I mean, how much time do we have before they're actually going to say that you can't say we have a baby in the womb? I mean, now they're saying you can't. In fact, the education secretary has sent out a memo to all public schools in the United States saying that if you say there's two genders, you're guilty of harassment, which is putting teachers on the hot spot to be fired or students to be disciplined. This is totalitarianism. We have to deal with this.
Yeah, and it's remarkable. I saw a study or a survey out over the holidays. 75% of Americans believe that there are only two sexes, male and female. But 75% is not winning. The fact that a quarter of the population doesn't believe that biological truth should be frightening in terms of an understanding of where we're going. I mean, if you asked that question a decade ago, I suspect it would have been about 99% believe that. So, and with only a quarter believing that, 3/4 not believing that, still that side of the discussion dominates our civic and cultural institutions.
It's true, and I think that this is showing the importance of regular people like myself to get involved and stand up, to have courage and fight back.
With respect to the election, in addition to decrying those things you started our conversation with about what the Biden administration has done and what we see the Democrat Socialists doing culturally too, what is it that the Republican Party, what is it that you're going to run on in addition to running against? What is the Republican Party, the vision that should be put forward by conservative Republicans like yourself?
Well, actually, I was just talking to Jim Jordan and some of the other members about what our priorities should be. And this is one of the things that we brought up that should be our priority is dealing with Section 230. That, and then, what's happened with the January 6th and how the federal government has been weaponized against the American people. Very scary. We are living in dangerous times. We don't need to elect people that are going to be passive. We need people like regular people to speak up, and I really want to encourage people to get involved on the state and local level also.
You mentioned President Trump. President Trump, this is one of these primary campaigns he's decided to wade into. He has endorsed your election over Rodney Davis. What does that mean? How should people interpret President Trump's endorsement of you in this primary campaign?
Yes, I'm very honored to have his endorsement. He is selective on who he endorses. He endorsed me because I'm the true America First candidate and not part of the D.C. swamp. Last summer, I was able to spend some time with President Trump when we toured the southern border together, and I'm kind of I'm grieving that he's not in office right now. China's laughing at us. They see nothing but weakness and incompetence out of the Biden White House. And for the American people, they're suffering. We're just layering crisis upon crises. And when I talk to people, they're scared, actually.
She is Mary Miller. She is an incumbent Congresswoman. She's running for reelection in a primary campaign against incumbent Republican Congressman Rodney Davis. For more information on her candidacy, marymillerforcongress.com, marymillerforcongress.com. Congresswoman Miller, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. She joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Balance of Nature's fruits and vegetables in a capsule, changing the world one life at a time.
This product is just downright amazing. I've noticed that I'm getting better